I've made a few videos now talking about Netflix's live-action adaptation of Avatar the Last Airbender, mostly talking about the red flags that I've been seeing from interviews from Albert Kim, the showrunner, to the creators of the original series leaving the project. There have been quite a few red flags. In today's video, I want to talk a bit about some positive things that I've been seeing from the project because I still have hope for this series. I'm a big fan of the original series, and I still have hope for this one. So let's get started.
So here we're seeing one of the most important events in the course of the show, which is the Agni Kai between Prince Zuko and his father, Fire Lord Ozai. This is arguably the defining moment of Zuko's life, is when he goes up against his father and ends up gravely wounded, and this is how he gets the scar that this trademark scar on his eye. Again, this is a scene that was not seen in the original series. It was kind of obliquely shown, but we decided this was something that was very important for us to see. So we actually choreographed this whole fight, shot it. You see the whole thing. It makes you understand a lot more about Zuko's character when you see it in real life.
This is really one of the biggest benefits of doing this live action adaptation. Not even necessarily doing a live action adaptation, but just redoing the story altogether. I mean, I'm obviously not a fan of going back and altering the original work, but expanding upon it in this way, I think is cool. Getting to see Fire Lord Ozai and Zuko, seeing that Agni Kai, because we got teased a bit with it, but now we're going to see that full encounter. This is something that wasn't done in the original series that they're going to do in this live action adaptation, and I think that is a good change. It's not taking away from the series, it's adding to the series, and hopefully the addition stays within the spirit of the series, and those kind of changes I like.
We did our best to recreate some of the most familiar images from the series, like the beam of light that shoots into the sky, or right afterwards when you see Aang at the edge of the crater with his arrow glowing. Those are images that I think every diehard Avatar fan knows really well, and so we thought it was really important that we do our best to recreate those images.
Now, this is something that I really do like. The fact that they're trying to take scenes from the original animated series and just bring those scenes into live action is awesome. Seeing Aang come out of the iceberg, seeing Zuko as a blue spirit, that scene, like, it feels like they just took the animated series and brought it to live action. That type of stuff is magical. That's the type of stuff that I'm looking for. Yes, in places, the CG, it doesn't look that great. You can clearly tell when something is CG, when something is not, especially when they zoom out and you see the grand scheme of things and the effects and stuff like that. Yes, the CG doesn't look that great in places, but the fact that they're trying to build scenes straight from the animated series, the fact that, look at Appa, look at Momo, look at the creatures, right? They're trying to bring those to live action, and that's what I like, staying true to the animated series, because that's what you're adapting, just bringing that and translating it into live action. Yes, there's going to be changes that need to be made, but if they really are doing their best to just translate the mediums without changing the spirit of the show, which is something that one of the creators, Brian, said they were doing. They were changing the spirit of the show, but hopefully they're not, because what they're saying here, it looks like they're not. And I do like what I'm seeing visually. So hopefully when the show does come out, it's going to be like that. It's going to be awesome. I'm going to be seeing my Avatar the Last Airbender animated series in live action, and in a live action adaptation with the spirit of that show intact.
It's also one of the things you realize when adapting a show like Avatar, that it's not just about the costumes and the hair and the makeup and the performers, it's about the props. There are so many props that are iconic to the show, and you have to get them all right, whether it's Sokka's boomerang or Katara's water skin or Aang's staff. All of those things are things that we worked very closely with Nevin Swain, our property master, to work on to make sure that we got it right, that felt faithful to the original, but also grounded to the real world. Because, if Aang's staff is also a glider, how thick should it be? These are all these questions that we had to ask ourselves.
Yeah, I think they're doing a solid job with the props, with the sets, with the props especially. All the little trinkets around the sets. Like, do you remember back, we did a video on this, when they first showcased the Fire Nation? and we were talking about Zuko, and then he was in a ship, right? And you're seeing the wall behind him, you're seeing the trinkets on set. It all looks authentic. It really looks like they brought the cartoon into live action, and that is awesome to me. Seeing the Blue Spirit, seeing the mask, seeing the seeing the Fire Nation soldiers, their whole outfits, Sokka's outfit. I think the costumes, I think the props, the little pieces look great. The sets, I think the sets are decent. The issue comes in when, yeah, they build the set, they have the props and all that stuff. So the close-up shots, I think, look cool. But when you back up and when you see in action sequences, the CG isn't that great. I mean, it's decent, but it's not that great, honestly, in my opinion. And so those larger scale shots, you can clearly tell it's CG. I think it's maybe a bit much. Like you have that scene with Aang on his little air ball, and he hits the wall and he falls over. The dust particles, I think it's a bit much. So that's why I feel like the CG isn't that great, and I feel like it might be taking. There should be a positive video, but I feel like the CG might be taking away from the sets and the props that they've created. But I don't know. Maybe it's just the stuff that we've seen in the trailers. I still think the sets and the props, especially the props, the trinkets that we're seeing around, it feels authentic. It feels like they're actually real, that they've been used, and that's what makes the environments feel alive, and that brings the characters to life because their costumes are also great. Let's talk about the cast here real quick too, because I think this is a positive. The casting, obviously, it's a lot better than than the movie that we got. I do have my gripes with the casting. Like, I think Katara could have been casted better. Yeah, she may act the part, but looks-wise, I feel like they could have gotten better. Aang, I think that's solid. We'll see how he acts and how they've written the character, but I think the casting is on point, especially Sokka. Yeah, skin color is off, but he's got a similar face shape. They got the hairstyle right. I think he's got the voice really. I think the voice is awesome, and I think he can act the part. So, I mean, he's ticked a bunch of the marks there. So, Sokka, I think that's one of the best castings. The other best casting would be Firelord Ozai to me. He looks great. Look, and here's what I'm talking about with the costumes, man. Like, they look awesome. They look real great. Boomy looks like a young guy with a bunch of makeup. It looks silly to me, but we'll see. We'll see. Grand, that looks perfect. Suki, that looks great. The Mechanist, he looks awesome too. See what I'm saying? June, that's awesome. The casting, for the most part, is awesome. And the costumes are great. I'm going back to the costumes, but the costumes are great. It really feels like it's stripped from the cartoon. Yeah, there's some differences, but the spirit of the costume is there. So yes, I might feel like some casting isn't on point like Azula, but for the most part, man, I think they did a good job with the casting.
Despite everything, Aang is just a goofy kid. And even after the sequence, you hear a funny joke from Sokka. That's part of his character, his sarcasm, his humor. And it was really important to us that we landed all the humor moments as well as the big epic action beats.
The humor goes hand in hand with the casting for me, because you need the right cast, you need the right actors to make that humor feel natural, to bring these very humorous, cartoony characters to life in live action. And I think the guy playing Sokka is a great pick for that. Aang, I think he could pull it off. Like in the recent video that they showed him playing in the water, that's Aang. He's being silly, he's being a kid, and that's what I want to see more. Things that scare me, where with Albert Kim, the showrunner, saying that he's going to be more driven, he's going to be more focused on his mission, that sort of detracts from the character of Aang. I want to see more of that humor. So I'm happy to see that humor was the focus. Even in an interview with IGN, in the same interview who's talking about Aang, he was saying that they filmed a scene, and then they were like, all right, let's make it sillier. Okay, let's do another one even sillier. Okay, maybe that's a bit too much. Let's dial it back. So it seems like they understand the tone of Avatar the Last Airbender. They understand that Aang does need to be silly. So I hope that there's no like conflict in the ideology amongst what's being done. I hope that, I don't know, maybe one writer is like, hey, we need this to be a bit more driven. We need Aang to be a bit more focused, a bit more serious. And then one guy's like, hey, we need to keep him silly. We need to keep him childlike. We need to keep him a kid because he doesn't want this responsibility. He's bouncing all over the place. He doesn't want to do this. But then he eventually realizes that this is important, that he needs to prioritize certain things and not go on random adventures. But again, we're talking about, we're trying to be more positive in this video. So we'll wait and see on that. I think they have the right mindset. It just may be they're coming off weird. Maybe Albert Kim is just coming off, the showrunner is just not expressing what he wants to express in the interviews. I don't know. We'll see how it turns out. But overall, I think the casting is done well, and I feel like their sentiment about the humor in the show, the way they're going about it, it seems to be about right.
So here we have a look at some of Iroh's firebending. We really tried to differentiate the bending as much as we could while making it feel like a unified event, as in all of our firebending should look like firebending, but Iroh's looks slightly different than Zuko's, which looks slightly different than Ozai's, which looks different than Azula's. And we also tried to differentiate them with sound design. So if you listen really closely to when Iroh bends, you'll hear almost a dragon sort of sound underneath all of that bending.
Now, this is one of the main aspects of the show. This is one of the reasons why a lot of people really like the show. The bending. It's just, it's so cool. Imagine, like, if I had to pick an element to bend, 100% I'd be water. I can bend solids like an earthbender, ice. I can bend air like an airbender with the gas. I can bend liquid, water. I can bend plasma. I can bend all the states of matter with water. Like, it's so versatile. 100% I'd be a water bender. I'm repping the blue too. But the way they're going about the bending, I think is cool. I mean, obviously what they said, I mean, obviously that's got to be the case. There's got to be, earth bending should not look like water bending. Air bending should not look like fire bending. And having different martial art influences for each of the bending style is cool. That's what they did in the animated series, and I'm happy to see that they're doing that in the live action. The other cool thing is what they said with the audio. Iroh, the Dragon of the West, he's going to be having like this dragon sound in his fire bending. That's cool. So seeing that, I think that's going to be cool. That an audible difference. It's like in Star Wars with the lightsabers. Each Jedi, their lightsabers sounded different, and audiences pick up on that, and it adds to the character. So those are some of the things I'm liking about the show so far. I really hope it lives up to that. The show is coming out pretty darn soon, so let me know your thoughts down below in the comment section. What do you think? If you had to rate season 1 right now, what would you rate it? Like I said, I'd probably give it a 7 out of 10. If I had to guess what I'd rate the series, I'd give it a 7 out of 10. You let me know down below in the comment section. What would you rate season 1? Just from the stuff that we've been seeing so far. And are you looking forward to it? Let me know down below. And I'll see you all in the next video. Take care.